everyone. This is Paul Casey, the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame. And today we're talking to one of our 2023 Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame nominees, Grandmaster Joey Walker. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with him. It'll be insightful in his background, his experiences, and his vision for the future of Kenpo. Hello, Grandmaster Walker. Welcome to the show. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background on your martial arts journey and what has brought you to today's conversation?
Absolutely. I started training in 1970, and that started in Reno, Nevada. I had two great instructors, Alexander Archie and Stanford McNeil, who gave me one half of the equation. In approximately 1975, I had the opportunity to meet and train with the great Bishop and Grandmaster Donnie Williams in Kenpo Karate in the Los Angeles area, and ultimately with Grandmaster Steve Muhammad. I was fighting a lot of championships in the Reno area as a black belt and becoming very successful. However, that was very limited. I found that once I started training with Bishop Williams and Muhammad, that filled in the other half of the equation. Approximately 1980-ish, I should say, I was requested to go and fight in the Ed Parker Internationals in Long Beach, California. And I gave one excuse after another about why I couldn't attend. And finally, I was put to the spot to say, I tell you what, I'll pay for your travel if you make it. So I showed up to the internationals thinking that, okay, I'll see what I can do. I fought in the team competition on a Friday night, and I was absolutely devastated in the team competition. I couldn't believe how I performed. I was so angry with myself, I couldn't get back to the hotel fast enough to beat myself up, basically. But after a night of doing that, I returned the following testimony, returned the following day, I should say, and was able to compete in the international competition and win first place. From that point forward, it was no holding me back. I've had opportunities to fight a lot of individuals who are very, very successful, and unfortunately, very, very underrated on my half, where I was able to introduce things to these guys, whether I'm fighting in Los Angeles, fighting in New York, fighting in Nevada, all throughout Nevada, southern as well as northern Nevada, Washington State. I had some great opportunities, fought some great individuals, got great recognition. I had individuals such as Alvin Prouder, Billy Blanks that were in my tournament past history. Some of those individuals I fought, and by the way, a guy by the name of the late Tony Satch Williams, who was out of Northern California, who ultimately was a heavyweight, even though I was a lightweight competitor, had some great fights with that guy. But what I found for myself is that trying to find and apply everything that I could at that specific moment in time to be the best I could be. Sometimes I prevailed, sometimes I fell a little short, but I never gave up. I kept showing up.
Sir, what is the biggest challenge you ever faced in your martial arts journey?
The biggest challenge I've ever faced, other than the other opponent, has been my own challenge of getting through my, I would say, getting through my mental block. Because sometimes when you're competing against another individual, you may know absolutely nothing about them, or you may have a lot of information that you know about the individual. And if you don't know anything about them, sometimes that's better. You go into the competition and you do the best you can. Sometimes you're able to see the individual and you compete against them and you do actually better than you anticipated. I fought in World Karate Championships for the police department, and I found one individual out of New York who I lost my self-confidence the very first match. And even though it was a double elimination match, I barely beat him the first match. I went into the competition at that specific moment thinking that I had fought this guy, I won, he lost, I should move on to the winners category, he should move to the losers category. But the tournament promoter had none of that. After arguing for about 15 minutes, I was forced to go back in and compete against that same individual. That time, I beat the guy like he stole something. So I had no problems with it beating that guy the second time. My instructor looked at me and said, what was your problem? Why didn't you fight that guy that way the first time? And I said, well, actually, I wasn't upset. I wasn't angry. So getting me out of the equation, getting my head out of the equation, because sometimes if you fight with too much thought process involved, fighting too carefully, you may not perform as best as you can.
What's the greatest lesson you learned from Donnie Williams?
The greatest lesson I've learned from Donnie Williams was to listen and to trust your instructors. Most martial art instructors are trying to do the best they can to teach their students and bring them along, but it's the students who actually are resisting and pulling back and pulling away, doubting themselves, not believing the instructor. But once you believe the instructor, and even if you have to go on just their faith, you do what they tell you to do, what they say you're doing or should be doing, and you'll find out that what they're giving you information on is the best thing they actually could actually make you perform better.
What are the lessons that you learned in the martial arts that you carried over into your personal life?
The best thing I could tell you about lessons I've learned from the martial arts is not only self-confidence, but the discipline. Using that same discipline, I took that information that allowed me to train hard, to study hard, and use that in not only going to college, but on the police department. So I ran through the ranks of the police department as an officer starting in approximately 1978, and went from there to a sergeant's position where I took the time to test and study for that test. It took me approximately 2 years before actually the test was given. In that 2-year period of time, I studied everything I could put my hands on. I came out in the #1 position for the written exam. Then I used that same discipline, that same self-confidence to take the test for lieutenant. Again, I studied this time for approximately 1 year and came out in the #1 position for lieutenant and was promoted as lieutenant. That same type of confidence I used in every critical incident I ever went to, whether it was a shots fired call, a hostage situation, a barricaded subject, suicidal subjects, any type of situation that police officers got involved in my city that I actually had to perform in, or in the city of Sparks, which is the neighboring town to Reno. I was able to respond to those scenes, take charge of those scenes, and provide up-to-date and critical information that was life-saving. I had 2 rules, basically. First, all my officers go home at the end of the shift. Second, the bad guy goes to the jail or to the morgue as long as it's legal.
Thank you for your service. How many years were you a law enforcement officer?
25 years of service of the Reno Police Department. In that service, I had an opportunity to work internal affairs with the Chicago Police Department, as well as in the gang unit, crash, and City of Los Angeles Police Department.
And, again, I have the greatest admiration for law enforcement. And again, sir, thank you for your service. It really
You're
means
welcome.
Let's finish up with just a few more things. And what is your vision, Grandmaster Walker, for the future of the martial arts and your input?
I would say the future for martial arts, in my perspective, is that hopefully we get away from the division. And I'm speaking specifically of divisions from a profit perspective to one of true brotherhood, sharing, because we all are trying to, at least I hope, provide information to students that will best serve them in a self-defense application. I understand that in martial arts, people have their specific directions or goals, things they want to attribute or things they want to achieve, whether it's to learn a lot more forms or to work on the philosophical aspect of martial arts that perhaps calms their mind and calms their spirit in others. But also, there's always a self-defense component. Otherwise, why do blocks? Why do strikes? Why do kicks? Otherwise, we would just do meditation. So with that aspect, I'm hoping that all of the schools ultimately come to an understanding where we can start teaching individuals that are providing techniques that are actually helpful. I've seen techniques on television within the last week that are absolutely horrible. You know that they wouldn't work in a true application, and using techniques like that would actually get someone seriously hurt, if not killed. So I really hope that all the schools can unite along that specific front to teach information, provide information, teach specific lessons that actually work against an armed or unarmed offender.
Grandmaster Walker, any final thoughts before we close?
Absolutely. One of the latest projects I'm working on is called Serial Defense. What that basically is that everyone's heard of serial killers. And if you watch any true crime show on television or listen to any true crime podcasts on your podcast, wherever you obtain that from, they always talk about the bad guy. They talk about the Ted Bundys. They talk about the BTK Dennis Raiders. They talk about other individuals that they hear about, and they'll give you the profile on the bad guy, but they never tell you about how the victim was selected. And they never tell you about exactly what the victim can do to prevent from being chosen as a victim, or how the victim can defend themselves. Hence, serial defense. We want to teach individuals against any attack where it's a serial attack, whether it's a serial rapist or a serial killer, because always, if the person's going to commit a sexual assault, it's a serial attack. They don't just do one, they do many until they're actually apprehended or unfortunately lose their life in whatever way, form or that happens. If it's a serial killer, they may start with 2 or 3 and end up with as many as Samuel Little, who was 80 years of age and had 93 victims to his credit. So what did these people do? A laundry list of risky behaviors, whether it's hitchhiking, whether it's being intoxicated or inebriated or under the influence of drugs, whether it's being abducted. And if this abduction is taking place, it's sometimes because the person pulls a weapon and forces that individual to a separate crime scene in their car or around the side of a building. And it's those locations that they need to know. If a person pulls a weapon, it is not going to be used most likely at the point of the initial attack. They're going to use that weapon to threaten the victim to go to a certain location and then harm the individual. So we want to teach individuals what they can do to protect themselves so we can reduce that rate of being victimized by serial killers and serial sex offenders. And again, it's called Serial Defense, and you can find it on serialdefense.com, which is my website, as well as any Apple podcast, Spotify podcast, or wherever you obtain most of your podcasts.
Grandmaster Walker, thank you for such an insightful, informative discussion with us. I know that the people that will be watching this will definitely want to reach out to you. You're a positive role leader, and also you're a very inspirational speaker. And I wish you continued success. It is nice to hear somebody actually help people, not how to block, punch, or kick, but how to prevent yourself from being a victim. And that really, if you can learn that, you're going to be at least advanced in the sense that that training you have, which you'll get from you as well, will come into use only when necessary. That seems what we're looking at. The unity of our martial arts community, again, you're a loud voice for that. And so we are truly honored to have you now as a new member of the 2023 Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame. And I do look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas. It'll be an amazing weekend. And for those of you that are watching, please reach out and go to his website. He'll be able to share more information there. You can probably reach out to him and get some more information. Correct, sir?
Absolutely.
Well, no further ado, I'm very honored to have Grandmaster Joey Walker here, sir. All the best. I look forward to you with a full salute to you.
Thank you.
God bless. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you, brother.